Good day, and welcome to the Vivitri Capital PVT Ltd conference call. I would now like to turn the conference over to Vibhoro Mittal.
A very good evening to all participants and welcome to Vivitri Capital webinar on TLTRO 2.0 and whether it would be sufficient to bail out NBFCs. I am Vibhor Mittal, Chief Product Officer at Vivitri Capital, and I am joined today in the discussion by two distinguished speakers. Our first guest speaker is Mr. Vineet Chhatri. Mr. Chhatri dons multiple hats. He is a senior executive with Aditya Birla Group. He is the director at Swatantra Microfin Private Limited and managing director at Micro Housing Finance Corporation Limited. He is also the vice chairperson of NCED. So Mr. Chhatri brings with him multiple perspectives and insights from the entire issuer community. Mr. Chhatri, a warm welcome to you and thanks for joining us for this event.
Thank you, Vibhor.
Our next speaker today is Mr. Vineet Sukumar. Vineet is the founder and MD at Vivitri Capital. In his earlier role, Vineet led the capital markets, fund management, finance, and treasury functions at Apollo Capital. Prior to that, Vineet led key institutional relationships at Standard Chartered Bank with exposure, deal experience across M&A, capital markets, and corporate finance. He has also worked with TAS, a crack team within the Tata Group, responsible for targeted strategic initiatives across group companies. Vineet, a very warm welcome to you as well.
Thank you, Vibhor.
The way we have structured the discussion today is as follows. First, I would be making a small presentation on the topic at hand. This would be followed by a panel discussion where we would get to listen to insights from our two expert panelists on their expectations from the coming auction, which is slated to happen on 23rd of this month. And finally, we would open the floor for audience queries. We'll start with the presentation now. So we're looking to cover three things in the presentation today broadly. So one, what are the key takeaways based on the experience that we've had with TLTRO 1.0? What are the expectations in the current backdrop from the coming TLTRO 2.0 auction? And finally, why we think there is a need for coordinated action plan for smaller NBFCs. So starting with the key takeaways from TLTRO 1.0. So banks with surplus SLR, which is both G6 securities as well as SPLs, could bid for this round of auction. Major allottees were 3-4 large PSU banks and also a handful of private banks. It is important to see that not all private sector banks participated in the auction. And the response was very, very muted from, foreign banks and other small finance banks. As far as deployment of funds is concerned, so largely it was seen as a treasury product where the bidding and the deployment was carried out by the treasury teams of these respective banks. Most of the funding went to PSU entities that are seen as quasi-sovereign and deemed to be risk-free. Some money also went to AAA-rated corporates and NBFCs, but the extent of funding going to non-AAA entities remained small. And that too, in the NBFC sector, there was hardly any money that went to such entities. That is below the AAA category. So the next slide shows what were the bid amounts which were received in all the 4 tranches. And against that, how much amount was allocated. So allocation obviously was 25,000 crore in each of the tranche. But if you see the bidding pattern, it is evident that the interest or participation from the banks increased or was much higher as we went along in the first 3 rounds. The third auction round saw banks bidding to an extent of 1.13 lakh crore. But in the fourth tranche, the interest waned subsequently, significantly, and the amount bid was only 61,000 crore. This was largely on account of introduction of a 10% cap on single entity or a single group exposure limit, which was set by the regulator, after which there was muted interest from banks. So this clearly demonstrates that banks are mindful of taking additional risk and going down the credit curve. Now coming to the expectations from the next round of auctions. So before that, we would just highlight some of the key features of this package. So one, this time the entire 50,000 crore limit is only earmarked for NBFC sector. So it's the entire money is going to flow to NBFCs only, and it's a much needed funding support which NBFCs had been asking from the government and regulators for a long time now. There are sublimits for small and medium-sized NBFCs and MFI sector as well. So 10% of the overall limit is allocated to NBFC MFIs, 15% to NBFCs with AUM of 500 crore and below. Another 25% sublimit to entities with AUM between 500 and 5,000 crores. This, unlike last time where there was a clear 50-50% bifurcation between primary and secondary market issuances, this time there's no such bifurcation. Like last time, any investments would be exempt from CRR requirements and also will be classified under STM category. And this limit will be in excess of 25% investment, which is anyway normally permitted for banks. The exposures will also not be reckoned under the large exposure framework. And like I mentioned earlier, the first auction for the initial 25,000 crore is scheduled on 23rd of April. And the funds have to be deployed within 30 working days. Some of the other measures which were announced, so there were refinance limits which were amounting to 50,000 crore, which were extended to NABARD, SIDBI, and NHB. Out of this, 25,000 crore limits have been given to NABARD. So this is for lending to RRBs, cooperative banks, MFIs, and so on. Another 15,000 crore limit to SIDBI for onward lending or for refinancing requirements, and another 10,000 crore limit to NHB for supporting housing finance companies. Any advances extended under this facility to be charged at the repo rate. RBI also reduced the reverse repo rate by 25 basis points from 4% earlier to 3.75% now. That is again to incentivize banks to start lending more and discourage them from parking funds with RBI to the extent of surplus liquidity available. There's also a stipulation of higher provisioning of 10% on all overdue accounts which are under standstill. And this provisioning has to be carried out over a period of 2 quarters, which is March 2020 and June 2020. Scheduled commercial banks and cooperative banks cannot make any dividend payouts as well, either for this year or till September 2020 or until further instructions from the regulator. The LCR requirement for the banks was also reduced from 100% to 80%, and then it will go up back to 100% in stages by April 01, 2021. So the expectations from LTRO 2.0. So while LTRO 1.0 was a treasury play, we believe that LTRO 2.0 is largely going to be a credit play, which means that credit teams of banks will play a key role in determining the extent of participation in these auctions and also for deployment of funds once the bids have been allotted. The treasury team would largely work with the credit team and would handle execution. And their role is going to be that much more restricted in that sense. Again, it's expected that substantial quantum would go towards primary issuances. That's on account of 2 reasons. One, that redemption pressures on mutual funds seem to have eased somewhat. And second, some of the smaller entities for which some funding limits have been set, they anyway are not so active in the capital market. Our expectation is that PSU banks may garner maximum share, and appetite from private banks and foreign banks again is expected to be muted. Largely this is because of the credit concerns that these banks have on NBFC sector, both on the asset side as well as on the liability side, and the fear of imminent rating downgrades, especially in the microfinance sector. Some banks have also indicated in our discussions that they are full on their internal NBFC limits and do not have excess SLR requirements as well, SLR with them, which may again reduce their or limit their ability to participate in the auction. Another reason being cited by banks is that investment in bonds does not qualify for PSL benefits as opposed to normal loans that they extend to some of the NBFC entities, or when they participate through securitization and direct-to-funding transactions. We believe that the small and medium-sized NBFCs, which is entities with assets of up to 500 crore and 5,000 crore respectively, they would stand to gain due to limit allocations. However, funding, especially from non-PSU banks, may come at a substantial risk premium. A lot of banks have indicated that they may limit taking exposure only to their existing clients, as there are issues in onboarding new clients on account of the lockdown scenario, as well as the general risk aversion which is there towards the NBFC sector, which I had mentioned earlier. For the smaller entities, we believe that credit enhanced or structured products which offer greater credit protection to the investors may be preferred for taking exposure to these entities. Larger entities, on the other hand, can possibly look at either doing standalone issuances or even some structured issuances like covered bonds or partially credit enhanced bonds with high security cover, depending on the investor requirement. So how can small NBFCs take advantage and get funding under LTRO 2.0? So we believe that there is a need for coordinated action plan amongst these NBFCs. It will be difficult for these entities to find investor appetite on their own, and they would be better served if they were to come together as part of a pooled issuance, where large number of entities come together and raise funds under a common transaction through a pooling. And the rating gets enhanced because of the common credit support or guarantee protection, which is there in respect of these issuances. There are already issuances with volumes of around 3,000 crore or more, which have happened in the market, and these products have gained acceptability from various market participants. Banks sitting on fence can be incentivized, in our view, to bid if they know that the above option is available, as each bank would need a clear action plan on deployment of funds in the various buckets prior to bidding. The obvious question is who can act as a guarantor, especially if the size of the funding requirement is large. We believe that DFIs like NABARD, SIDBI or Mudra may be persuaded to offer guarantee to facilitate funding for the smaller entities. Similarly, NHB can do the same for housing finance companies. Any pool structure would also address the single entity limit issue, because the exposure to various entities by nature is diversified, and the risk is spread across multiple entities for the bank. And any one or two small entities defaulting would not result in any loss or shortfall to the bank, as that would be covered by the common guarantee support which will be available in the transaction. MFIN can play a prominent role in bringing together entities in the microfinance sector. And again, within microfinance sector, we believe that SFBs and Bandhan Bank, for example, which have a good understanding of the sector, they should be persuaded to participate in this round, because they would be in a better position to take a view on individual credits and lend money to them. So with that, we come to the end of the presentation. And I would like to welcome back both my speakers for the panel discussion. So Mr. Chatri and Vineet, welcome again to both of you. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Mr. Chatri, we can probably start with you. So my first question to you is that LTRO 2.0 was, it's supposed to be the panacea for NBFCs against the loan moratorium issue, as most banks have not yet extended moratorium on the term loan borrowings of NBFCs. Now, while it is a much needed dose of liquidity injection, is the amount of 50,000 crores sufficient in your view for the overall NBFC sector, at least to address the immediate liquidity concerns and address the cash flow mismatch which would be arising on account of the moratorium being offered on the underlying portfolios?
Yeah, thanks, Vibhor. I think what you have asked is a very important question which we all have been grappling with. Because post-27 and in a humane and a compassionate manner, all of us have obviously extended the moratorium to all the billing clients till May, right? Would actually mean that when this was announced on March 27th, let us say the most of the clients, if they would want to opt in for moratorium, it would mean about 2 months of cash flow. Now, if I would just give you a number perspective broadly. If I look at only NBFC MFI, and please mind, I am not including SFBs or NBFCs or banks which are also providing the microfinance products.
Right.
Roughly about, we are talking about close to about 70,000 odd crores of liability or book on that side. And broadly speaking, and it's just a thumb rule, by the way, and I may be wrong here, 1 month of repayment obligations broadly would run into anywhere between close to 3,000 crore if I were to put up overall number to this set of NBFC MFIs. 2 months would be close to 6,000. Now, what we have, especially for dedicated 5,000 crore, I mean, if I were to take 10% of 50,000 which is being told, is just about short of 2 months of no collection but repayment, and to overcome that liquidity. And I'm obviously not making here any comment in terms of the readiness of players in terms of already having some sort of liquidity in hand before the whole situation started. So while NBFC MFIs have a dedicated fund, there is obviously a para 2 and a line 2 and a line 3 which also talks about NBFCs in general, wherein also they will qualify, correct? So NBFC MFI in general are also NBFCs. So for looking at only the liquidity concern, this may be just about enough. The key question which all of us, and you have absolutely hit the nail on the head, is about how would it get transmitted to the smaller and medium MFIs. I mean, there are two major issues which we obviously see here, and this is something which we all have to sit together and define, is that if you look at the overall relationship, in fact, first thing that you said, that while this may be an investment product, but the decisions will be largely through credit, correct? Credit teams and the existing relationships. Right. And therefore, the credit ratings will be very important, because at the end of the day, be it investment product or be it a lending product, the call is credit, correct? Right. Now, if I look at the relationship of small and medium MFIs amongst the small, and by the way, the definition is only, by the way, less than 100 crores is something which is small, and above 100 is something we call it large. We don't call it small any longer, and there is 500 where we start calling it beyond large, and up to 500 to 500 is medium. If I look at the overall scenario of small and medium NBFC MFIs, small have about 80% of banking or 80% of their funding relationships through non-banks, and the medium have about 67 or 70 odd percent through non-banks. So first of all, their direct borrowing from the banks for the smaller NBFC MFIs is limited. That's the first point. Now, therefore, how would you actually transmit this TLTRO product through the banking institutions into the NBFC MFIs, where the prima facie reason would be, okay, do you have my relationships or do I have my existing relationships? While Treasury will execute, but the call will be credit team. So where is the call of credit team? And the time is only 1 month. The second question that also arises is the definition that this has to be invested into investment grade. Of course, while you talked about that the credit guarantee can look upon as investment grade, upgrading of the rating, but almost BBB and lower is as much as close to about 60 to 70%, about 70 odd percent is BBB and lower. That's the second challenge. Now, these two challenges are very important to overcome if we were to look at this liquidity infusion to come in. So for sure, this liquidity infusion is absolutely welcome. This does take care of a significant amount of cash flow mismatch for at least 2 months that we are talking about. But whether the execution will happen very quickly, and that's where all of you and I would say a larger institute of banking institutions out there will have to think out of the box and actually make our execution faster to help, but that still does not take away the request of what we have been seeing in terms of moratorium. And by the way, RBI has, and I must say that there are a fair number of banks who have also kind of come in to help the NBFC MFIs in terms of providing a back-to-back moratorium. It's only a set of banks which haven't, and that we believe is a very welcome move. So the combination of moratorium given by the sympathetic banks and banking institutes and some of the NBFCs and this liquidity infusion can certainly help.
Right. No, all very valid points that you made. So, in our own analysis as well, what we've seen is that larger entities at least seem to be okay on liquidity, at least for meeting their own OPEX requirements or for meeting debt payments, at least for the next 3 to 6 months. On the other hand, it is the smaller entities which need the funding the most because they seem to be starved for liquidity. And, some of them do not have sufficient liquidity to survive maybe beyond a 1 month period. So it is absolutely essential for us to get these funds flowing to such entities where the funding requirement is the most.
Yeah.
And then
the one point I may want to also add here, sorry Vibhor, one more point in refinance I forgot. Yeah. The third point was refinance. Yeah. Refinance also, if I look at the DFIs, the large amount of refinance which have been again has been going on a traditional rating basis, which is again, you say, typically it's even there more stringent in terms of the refinance that was being actually given by the DFIs. Now, they also internally need to look at it in terms of how do they actually remove some of those filters or come out with innovative products to innovative refinancing metric to actually infuse the money through refinancing. And mind you, refinancing needs book, which needs to be existing with smaller and medium MFIs, which again may not be significant enough to take care of their liquidity scenario, right? Because refinancing has to come through an existing asset base that you should have in access to obtain that. So refinance route per se also for smaller and medium MFIs may not be very helpful.
Right. No, that's a good point. Another point that you made was that a lot of these small entities do not have existing relationships with a large number of banks. They may be banking, especially in the MFI sector, these entities may be either banking with other NBFCs or maybe banking with one or two SFBs, for example. Now, for such
Right.
entities, how do we get banks to, take exposure? Because one, obviously there are issues around doing traveling and retail credit due diligence on these entities for the bank. And also, most banks seem to be taking a risk-averse view. So how do we incentivize these banks to, take an exposure on these entities and for the funds to flow in?
And that's actually absolutely very important. And in fact, actually, that's where the role of some of the, like yourself and some of the other institutions come into play, who actually have been looking at this sector very closely, and also the credit guarantee products which we can actually have, PFIs play a very important role. Because at the end of the day, when the deployment of this capital through TLTRO, through the subscription of investment products happen, the credit call is going to be very important, and the guarantee products, if it can be created, which takes away a lot of so-called risk assessment from having an existing relationship to actually believing in the microfinance sector, which, by the way, I personally believe has been the most resilient sector in this country. After seeing so many ups and downs after AP crisis, we have seen demonetization, we have seen multiple natural calamities. The sector, by the way, has never defaulted to the mainstream, and actually have every time bounced back to have the best gross NPAs and NNPAs in this country, in particularly in the lending institutes, if I were to say, from any asset that you pick up in this country. So the sector has been very resilient. I'm sure we will come out of this issue also, because there is a significant difference between what has happened now and what has been happening earlier. Earlier, there were too many rumors of waivers, too many rumors of political intervention. Here, it's a genuine problem. If we remain restrained, this problem will go away, clients will come back. And I guess the credit guarantee will actually help banks embolden their decisions if we actually pull in some of the small MFIs who do not or may not have existing relationship. I believe that probably is the only way to quickly execute it. Otherwise, in this lockdown scenario, getting into the due diligence, etc., is practically impossible.
So on this note, let me also pull in Vineet into this discussion. So Vineet, Mr. Chakri mentioned that, guarantee-backed issuances or pool structures possibly is the way to go, because banks, would soon need to take a call on how much they want to participate and how much amount of bid they would want to put in the coming auctions. And they need visibility as far as investment in each of these buckets. So how do you think we can go about doing it? How can we bring entities to come together and participate under this structure?
Thanks, Obur. I think just reacting to a lot that has been said. I think the fact that NCDs today for a bank neither confer priority sector, nor is the LTRO cost of borrowing really a mitigant for credit risk. And as a result, I think a lot of thinking has to really go into how we can enable private banks and public sector banks to engage and invest into a bonds of a very large number of NBFCs, small, mid-sized, and large NBFCs. I think that the key point here is that any bank which participates in the TLTRO must necessarily allocate financing towards the small category, which is sub 500 crores, the medium category 500, 5,000, microfinance companies, and the balance can go towards other NBFCs, including large NBFCs. Now, 2 points here. One is that while there has been a categorization put in place for NBFCs, there is no such categorization for microfinance companies. Does this mean that banks have the incentive to continue to lend to small MFIs? Not very sure how they will think around this and plan the allocation. Number two is from a pooling perspective. Yes, absolutely. Pooling is the way to go forward. I can imagine how banks can think about taking the entire bucket of microfinance, small and mid-sized NBFCs and create one large pool which has the benefit of subordination from from investors that can absorb higher credit risk, and then aim to create a fairly large and diversified pool of assets, which is sharply reducing risk for the bank, right? To my mind, that is definitely the way to go. But there are the following issues that we will face from an execution perspective. The first is that usually public sector banks accept applications regionally, right?
Right.
Whereas pooling requires us to deal directly with the head office, credit and treasury on a coordinated basis, right? So will a large number of NBFCs come forth and apply in a coordinated fashion? Number one.
Right.
Number two, as Mr. Chhatri already outlined, over the last 18 to 36 months, on account of multiple state-owned banks being under preventive corrective action, these banks have simply not taken exposure to lower-rated NBFCs at all, right? So do we really have time to onboard a large number of companies in the 0 to 500 crore and 500 to 5,000 crore range? Very difficult, and unless this happens through a coordinated action with structuring, I don't really see how this can be executed in a very short time, right? And the third is, I think, as far as private banks are concerned, I think private banks are no stranger to structuring. Private banks have very actively participated in securitizations, in multi-originator securitizations, have been assessing pooled loan issuances for some time. For these organizations to come into a pooled bond issuance is not a problem at all from a structure perspective. There the issue is only and only credit risk. Are they willing to lend to small NBFCs? How will they assess the asset liability risk on these small NBFCs? And will they lend with the benefit of a guarantee stroke subordination? The fourth issue is the sheer extent of subordination required, and the need for large DFIs to step in and participate and take on the role of providing that kind of credit support to transactions by way of coming in as a subordinated participant. Because given the size of the TLTRO 2.0, the absolute level quantum of credit enhancement required would be several hundred crores, which is too large for any single counterparty or even two counterparties to provide. So these are the execution challenges. However, I think options are very limited, frankly, because unlike other TLTROs, this one will actually see muted participation, and to generate interest from banks between today, tomorrow, and day after, to be able to see high participation on 23rd, NBFCs will really have to show a coordinated face and apply jointly.
So Vineet, you mentioned the challenges. So I have a couple of follow-up questions. So one, what is the sense that you get in your discussion with these DFIs? Do you think a 30-day timeline is sufficient for executing such complex pool structures, considering the large number of entities that are involved, and also need for the lender to take a view and the guarantor to take a view on these entities? Can it be managed in these tightly defined timelines, like I said?
No, I think you're right. This is a challenge. I would not deny this is actually the biggest practical challenge in terms of time. And I mean, this could have been possible until the external scenarios would have been a bit more conducive. There's a combination of timelines and external scenario, both makes the life more difficult at this point in time. I mean, one is the acceptance, as Vineet was rightly saying, of the structure itself, and actually go about executing it. So while I'm sure the MFIs through MFIN and the body per se, we can actually act very quickly. But our discussions with DFIs have been a bit more limited until now. We have reached out to them, and I'm sure you have also talked to them. But and they are also keen, by the way, to look at the participation. But I guess one has to formulate the structure very quickly. I mean, I honestly can't comment on this question in terms of its practicality. To me, it looks a challenge.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think the only silver lining is that at least the Indian DFIs have been very 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 familiar with the sector, both with NBFCs and with microfinance companies. That's the only silver lining. Can we apply to RBI for more time? That's of course an open point. But DFIs have been very familiar. DFIs have participated in securitizations, especially Mudra, so they are not a stranger to structured finance. So very very tight timelines. Very very tight timelines. Secondly, as Mr. Khatri said, microfinance companies are more coordinated in terms of on account of MFIN. MFIN's excellent work. NBFC is less so. And that's also the crux of the problem, really, in terms of really getting a large base of companies to take a coordinated course of action.
Sure. And we discussed about small companies. What about large companies? So let's say somebody which is rated in A category. So do you think that both from PSU banks and private banks, there would be interest for standalone issuances, or even for these entities, they should look at possibly some structured offerings like a covered bond instrument, or maybe some credit enhanced instrument, either by way of guarantee support from a third entity, or by way of higher cash collateral or security cover, etc. So what would be your view on that? And also on the pricing expectation. So are we, would the banks be willing to lend to these entities at the price that these entities are used to borrowing in the market before the crisis?
So
yeah.
I think you're asking me or Vineet, actually.
I think both of you can take a crack at it. So, Mr. Khatri, if you can go first. And
see, for given that there is a very clear conditionality attached with this particular round of bidding, for banks to participate, they will have to look at these exposures for sure, isn't it? And therefore,
right.
As we actually started by saying that anybody which is going to be in the A rating, and by the way, the larger MFIs, who, in fact, if I were to tell you that, in fact, larger scenario, the larger MFIs, the situation is absolutely opposite, where 70% relationship is actually with banking institutes. So they know the credit profile, they are comfortable with the rating. And I guess there is a fair amount of delta in terms of so-called the repo and the lending which they will be essentially doing, even if it is market. If their SLR permits, I think it will be a win-win situation for both of them. I'm not sure would there be requirement of guarantee products there. I mean,
right.
To my mind, yes, it's absolutely a good opportunity for some of the larger, medium and larger MFIs if they have their so-called limited rate, they have their rating limits increased, and they have existing relationships to participate in this round and take care of their customers. Because, one thing we all forget, I always end up talking about customers for sure, is that it's not just about moratorium that our customers will be expecting. Most of them would actually be looking for disbursement, and again looking up to us. Nobody's going to be there to help them. And
right.
When we come out of this situation, let's say whenever we come out in green zones or red zones, and that is the reason why we have also been accorded the essential services tag, that we have to be there to help our customers. So where would this disbursement need come from? Where would we actually able to suffice that requirement? And this actually window would help some of the smaller or larger MFIs to actually build in that kind of a buffer of liquidity to go for disbursements, not just take care of their operational or repayment obligations, actually. So I would say it's a win-win situation for them. They may not be very complicated.
Okay. Vineet, you want to add anything further to that?
Yeah, I think the key change from the way TLTRO 2.0 will be implemented within banks versus the first set of auctions is that the entire decision making will be largely driven by the credit teams and not by treasury. Now, clearly, a bank treasury, very, very, very rarely goes below AAA. And that's what we have seen as the outcome of investments made from the first round of TLTROs, right? TLTRO 2.0, however, we have good reason to believe will be much more led by credit teams and not treasury teams. And therefore, as Mr. Chhatri said, these are teams that have been very, very, very used to dealing with A category, NBFCs, HFCs, MFIs, AA category as well, and should be much more willing to take a calibrated call based on the asset liability position, based on the loss curve that they will have in mind, based on incremental equity support coming in from a parent or from a private equity fund, and therefore resulting in a certain effective cash position, projected cash position for the company. So I think these kind of calibrated calls can be taken. So for higher rated companies in the single AA category, we can actually see a better outcome this time around than from previous LTROs.
Sure. Yeah. So Vineet, you mentioned about AA category companies. So one view that seems to be forming in the market is that is there a case of a missing middle segment? So outside the MFI sector,
can you sorry?
So I think the missing middle segment. So essentially, we have individual limits for entities which are up to 500 crore in size and 5,000 crore in size, which will come within that 50% sublimit.
Right.
And then you have balance 50% money, which probably will go to the larger entities. And these entities may be entities with assets upwards of 20,000 odd crores. And these entities obviously have significant appetite of their own and can easily absorb this amount. So is there a missing middle layer? So entities, let's say, between AUM of 5,000 crore and let's say up to 15,000 crore or 20,000 crore, which may be, more starved of funds and, money may not come into this segment, at least in this current round. Is that a realistic expectation?
That could be a possibility. It is a possibility.
Okay.
And as you rightly put it, I think the largest of NBFCs on the AAA side, even they have not benefited much from the first round of TLTRO. But given that this one is specifically meant for NBFCs, there will be a flight of safety towards AAA. And as you rightly said, the AAAs can absorb a lot of money. And therefore, it is possible that there is a real missing middle in the AA category, which may have to be met by enhancing ratings through some structure to a AAA SO to make it attractive for banks.
Yeah, or they will have to go back to the first criteria of 10%, which is 5,000, where the NBFC, I'm talking of NBFC MFIs for sure, but NBFCs, yes. In general, the NBFCs of AA missing middle will be a question. Yes, absolutely.
Sure. So very interesting set of views. And I would now want to give the opportunity to our participants who are connected on the call to ask whatever queries they have as well. So I would request the operator to open the line for any audience questions at this stage. Operator?
If you would like to ask a question, please signal by pressing star 1 on your telephone keypad. If you are using a speakerphone, please make sure your mute function is turned off to allow your signal to reach our equipment. A voice prompt on the phone line will indicate when your line is open. Please state your name before posing your question. Again, press star 1 to ask a question. We'll pause for just a moment to allow everyone an opportunity to signal for questions. And we'll take our first question. Caller, please go ahead. Caller, your line is live. Please ask your question.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello. Yeah, my name is Arjun Pasi, and I'm representing an NBFC called Phoenix Finance. We are a young NBFC. We're not rated yet. While we were going for rating, but the lockdown happened. We are here. We are also in the market to raise debt, and we've been working with a couple of names, including Vibhriti. But because of the lockdown, of course, it's been gone on hold. While I've been hearing the discussion regarding, of course, bigger NBFCs and how such government initiatives might help them, what about raising funds for an NBFC like ours, which is positive, but the operations are short term? You can say 2 to 3 years. It's positive, but how do you perceive this, and where can we go?
Okay, I'll take that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take that. So the sources today are unfortunately limited, and the way it works is that today, for most of the unrated NBFC universe, the source of debt has actually come in from larger NBFCs that understand the risk much better and also have the leeway to invest, to lend down the rating scale. So what we are likely to see, hopefully, is that as a result of the first LTRO and the subsequent LTRO 2.0, there's a significant amount of fund flow going to larger NBFCs, and these NBFCs are also able to now direct that credit towards the smaller ones that could not avail of these sources of finance. Another part also, I think, is that I think the deposit accretion for small finance banks also has been pretty decent at this point of time. These are also lenders who have been able to take credit risk on smaller NBFCs and support them. So the answer to your question, sir, would be a combination of larger NBFCs that are able to raise liquidity at this point of time from the government initiatives, as well as small finance banks.
Okay, thank you.
We'll take our next question. Caller, please go ahead.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Hello, sir, your line is live. Please ask your question.
Hello, yeah, hi. I am Shashank Jain from Shubham Housing, Gurgaon. Today's discussion was very interesting. Thanks for the opportunity. I also heard that what is more likely to succeed is pooling of assets, so the size becomes a little bigger and the risk becomes diversified. My question is Vibhriti doing some of it or planning to do some of it? And if yes, how do we participate in that?
This is Vineet. I'll take that. So yes, that's right. We are certainly planning to take this up, and we are also creating some degree of consensus between the banking community that such a structure would be acceptable and also a viable way for them to participate and invest into TLTRO 2.0. Right now, all our energy at Vibhriti Capital is going towards trying to ensure as much participation as possible from banks. Because right now, the genuine fear is that participation will be muted on account of credit risk, as we discussed during the webinar. So once we have clarity by Thursday on what has been the final outcome of the auction, we will immediately get into the motions of execution and constructing pooled structures that can go out to banks, and that will be a great time for us to engage and move forward. In the meantime, of course, we are trying to create consensus from both our NBFC partners as well as from banks that these structures are possible.
Thank you, Vineet.
Vineet, on this line, I'm sorry to interject, but one thing I wanted to also kind of that has, in fact, I also run one of the HFCs and a smaller NHFCs, and have there been also the discussions with NHB at this point in time would be also very important, and I'm sure. Have you actually had any dialogue or comments, any discussion with them in terms of putting together either a credit guarantee or themselves directly participating?
So we have spoken with all the DFIs, and this has been a two-pronged effort. One is to use the incremental liquidity coming in from RBI for refinancing, where, as you rightly put it, refinancing is limited to assets that are on the balance sheet, and that becomes a slightly limiting option for smaller HFCs. The second is to build on credit guarantees. Now, what we know for a fact is that NHB definitely has a product. It's a long buried product, but they do have a product for credit guarantees. It's never been used. Similarly, we know that the other DFIs, NABARD and SEDBI, have stated their willingness to move ahead on credit guarantees. It's more a question of time and execution rather than willingness. They are willing. So I think it's just about time being against us, but there is an open dialogue with all the DFIs.
Thank you.
We'll take our next question. Caller, please go ahead. Caller, your line is live. Please ask your question. Hearing no response from the line, moving on. Taking our next question. Caller, your line is live. Please ask your question. Right, and they took themselves out of the questioning queue. We'll take our next question. Caller, please go ahead.
Hello. Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, myself Niklesh. I just want to have a clarity on the bifurcation between the primary and secondary market. So, because if we go through the circuit, it is saying that all other terms and conditions will be same as LTRO. So, is it that there is no bifurcation between 50% primary and secondary, and there will be a good, issuance size in primary, or it is not yet certain now? Hello.
This is Vineet here. So, good point. I think unlike the previous LTROs where there was a clear bifurcation of primary and secondary, that's not very clear in this time around. So theoretically, a large part of this can go towards secondary as well.
Okay. Because there is no much clarity on that part whether it will, because it says that other terms and conditions will be same as LTRO 1. So it's again a benefit or ambiguity is there, right?
That's correct.
Hello. Yeah. So also one second question I have, if you can just entertain that. I just want to understand that there was Mr. Chatterjee was saying that there are smaller MFI where it doesn't have a bank borrowing, which is quite correct. So this liquid infusion will not flow to, may not much flow to the smaller one, and that will be, so is it like it will be flowing basically to medium or large, or there will be, again, there is a cap for 10% to single entity. So what's your view, whether the bank will be bidding it or they will be pulling it back apart from 2-3 large banks? What's general your view in that?
We need to.
Yeah. I think each bank will follow their own, frankly. And the waterfall to our mind will be that banks will first try to support existing borrowers of theirs. Their familiarity is high. Credit appraisal has been completed and does not have to be redone. And therefore execution timelines can be shorter versus picking up and supporting new companies. So to my mind, each bank will follow their own path. difficult to conceive that within the short period we're able to get a multi-investor construct in place.
Thank you.
We'll take our next question. Caller, please go ahead.
Hi, this is Ramesh from Science Capital Private Limited. I wanted to ask, what is the realistic time frame for setting up a pool structure, possibly getting it listed, and getting the banks to subscribe for it? Because time seems to be of the essence here. Thank you.
Vibhor?
Yeah. So execution, I think we would have a 30-day window post the bidding process is over to deploy funds. And I think important thing for us is to get the entities together and finalize the composition with each investor. Because every investor would probably want to have a say in terms of pool composition, the share of individual entities which are going to be forming the part of the pool, as well as possibly the extent of guarantee, etc., that is required. So if we are in a position to close the composition, let's say within a span of 5 or 10 days, then I think managing the other aspects of execution, which is getting the guarantor to take a view on these entities, getting the rating agency to rate this transaction if the rating is required, and getting the lender to take a view. I think that is something which can still be managed. And once credit decision has been made, execution part of it should be straightforward. So listing and doing issuances, etc., that itself will not take time. What will take time is the rating process and decision-making process, both at the end of the lender and the guarantor. And quickly finalizing the pool, I think that is important for us to be able to manage the timelines which are stringent.
Okay, thank you.
We'll take our next question. Caller, please go ahead. Your line is live.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Sir, myself, Rahul here. Good afternoon to you all. Sir, would just like to understand, as you mentioned regarding the pooling of the major NBFCs. So just would like to understand what would be your stake in terms of this credit enhancement per se, because as you mentioned that you would be asking few big players for this credit guarantee and all those stuff. So what would be your stake as far as this credit enhancement things are concerned? Because keeping in view the current scenario. Yeah, thank you.
We'll take our next.
So we can look at it as, yes, I may just respond to that question. So at least in the past structures that Vivriti has done, the extent of risk participation from Vivriti balance sheet has been anywhere between 15 to 25% in the form of a first loss guarantee support to the lender. But here, considering that the issuance size is going to be large, considering that we are looking at a sizable number of entities and issuance size that could be in excess of 1,000 crore or so. So as Vineet mentioned, the overall guarantee requirement may be a few hundred crores. And while Vivriti or maybe other NBFCs can possibly participate to some extent, as a first loss credit management provider, it becomes important that we have participation from DFIs who can facilitate such a large issuance and take the guarantee obligation for the balance amount. Yeah.
We'll take our next question. Caller, please go ahead. Caller, your line is live. Please ask your question. Hearing no response, moving on. Caller, your line is live. Please ask your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Thanks for the wonderful presentation. Okay, so here, my question is, I want to understand whether this TLTRO2 is more like an oxygen for these small NBFCs. Okay, I can understand that it is so for them, but for the mid and the large ones, okay, is this will be used as an opportunity to borrow from the banks, or will they still depend on the capital markets, because the bank lending rates are higher than the capital market rates? And this question comes because when we're already looking at growth concerns, and I think that the NBFCs are not looking at growing now, instead of ensuring that the collections come by, and then the NPLs and are all minimal at this point of time. So what's your view on that?
So mutual funds as an investor segment, I think their participation is going to be muted, at least for the foreseeable next few months, because a lot of them have been facing redemption pressures. There are concerns on asset quality, etc. So I think for incremental funding, the share of funding from the banks is going to go up. And some of it, what has been coming as a loan in the past, that would move to investments because the money is being made available by RBI through the TLTRO, and that's where the play is. So it will be essentially borrowing through capital market instruments, but the investor being banks.
But other lending rates of banks from this TLTRO will be better than what they could get from the capital market?
So if you see the way the pricing has moved in TLTRO 1.0 as well, right? There were good yields that the investors could make even in the secondary market, and that too I'm talking about for entities which are rated at a AAA level, where some of the NCDs have exchanged hands at 8.5%, 9%, etc. So I think on the pricing, considering the risk premium that the banks are going to attach to the NBFC sector, plus the fact that a lot of them would already be full on their NBFC limits, my expectation is that the pricing is going to be even higher than what we have seen in TLTRO 1.0, which means that it may be closer to maybe something like a 10% level even for larger entities.
Okay.
Yeah, or 9 to 10% kind of a level for larger entities as
well. Okay. But then will the NBFCs look at borrowing from the banks to lend at the market? Is that the mood among the NBFCs now?
But so NBFCs, I think they would be open to taking funds from any source that they can get, provided it comes to them at a reasonable cost, because they're not just looking at repayments, but also to begin disbursements at some stage. And like Mr. Chatri said, there is a moratorium which is there on the asset side, etc. So I think NBFCs would be open.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
We will be very open for that. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll take our next question. Caller, please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello? Yeah, my name is Anshukant. I work at the Asian Development Bank. This is a question to both the panelists, and many thanks for this very helpful conversation. This is a question specifically in the context of the small MFIs, which probably have not only taken a severe blow in terms of their liquidity, but also there is a concern that their operating capacity and their staff and managerial capacity when operations do tend to head towards normalization, that itself might have come under severe pressure in this lockdown period. And the point that, it will be very difficult to do an on-site due diligence or a greater assessment of these activities now, that is totally taken. So is there a way that either MFIN or through some other arrangement, lenders or guarantors can be comfortable that while we do take the credit risk, there is no other governance or some other aspect around malpractices or non-protection of client rights, etc. happening, which would at least insulate us from that potential negative and reputational fallout?
So, Mr. Chatri, would you like to take that?
From a point of view of the smaller MFIs, as you absolutely said, right, that obviously there is a crunch because, while of course we all believe that the moratorium ends on May 31st, but obviously the livelihood of people will take a little bit of a time to come to normal, maybe another half a month or a month, and therefore the repayments will become normal only, let's say, possibly somewhere by mid of June, end of June or something like that. By that time, obviously the companies obviously are talking to their banks for moratorium. Some have been successful, some have not been successful. So there is a fair amount of cash flow requirements which will be there. And please mind that at the same time, if we are not seeing disbursing to the clients, obviously this so-called collection or rather the NPA pressures even go up. And we have all learned through the history that you need to make disbursements in some form or manner to at least some of your existing clients to build them up out of this. So I think I'm not sure that there will be any issues that probably will crop up somewhat of what you mentioned. In fact, I was talking to some of my colleagues around in World Bank, and they were also actually talking about that what can we do at this point in time to actually help. And we said, please come in and provide credit guarantee or something like that so that the portfolio or these companies can actually get some sort of credit investment, either be a co-investor in this pool so that they can absorb the liquidity. And in fact, if you ask me, TLTRO 2.0 probably should actually be breathing oxygen first to them, followed because the larger or the medium or a larger or rather say larger MFIs can actually live into 0.2 and 3. But 0.1, we need a support to smaller MFIs. So in fact, I am not sure, and Vibhor, this is your technical point, I don't think there will be any issues that probably would have a reputational risk.
So Anshu, thanks for asking that question. So see, at least we've not encountered such issues in the past with our onboarded clients, with the clients that we work with. But yes, I mean, these are sort of idiosyncratic kind of events, if at all any such issue was to arise. But at least, we believe that such events are extremely unlikely.
It hasn't happened, but sure, we can. But we can do a due diligence on the promoter set, and actually looking at that point can actually be quickly done, which may not be a very time-consuming process to at least prevent some of these things. Actually.
Sure. I think thank you for answering that. I guess it might be a idiosyncratic risk which maybe some set of lenders or guarantors may be more vulnerable to. And because we are also answerable to our internal higher-ups on these aspects, I think some assurances at that stage would be extremely helpful. Thanks for that.
I think, sure, we can actually work that up. I mean, we can actually, and should talk about this, and we can actually bring it something. Because at the MFIN also, if they are members of some of our associations, we do exercise a bit of due diligence around. So I'm sure some sort of our help in terms of inputs can actually be provided from that side also. So we can actually think about it, how we can actually overcome the concerns if you have. But we would certainly welcome you to kind of help this MFI the other way around.
Surely. We'll try our best, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take our next question. Caller, please go ahead.
Yes, hello. My name is Sudhir Upadhyay. I'm calling from Vector Finance Private Limited. So actually, Vector Finance is a small MFI. So wanted to check what steps have to be taken from our side to participate in this structured transaction. Hello. Yeah, hello.
Before you want to answer?
Yeah. Sure. So I think Vineet has already answered this question to some extent in the past. So once I think we have clarity on bank-wise and investor-wise limit and what is the quantum that each lender is willing to put on this structure, at that stage we would reach out to our set of clients and entities and we'll engage with MFIN for putting together a pool. And that is when possibly we'll reach out to you and you can evince your interest in being part of the structure for availing funding.
Okay, thanks.
So operator, I think we are out of time. Maybe we can just take one last question before we wrap up.
We'll take our last question. Caller, please go ahead. Caller, your line is live. Please ask your question. Hearing no response, moving to the next question. Caller,
hi. Hi. I'm Sridhar here. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, thank you. So my question is, I'm just trying to understand the economics of this. So I'll just put it succinctly. So a bank issues bonds, let's say at around 4%, is that correct? And then looking to on-lend to NBFCs at around between 9 and 10%. Is that what we are looking at?
Yeah. So, yes. You're right.
Okay, and there is no SLR or CRR requirement on these bonds. I mean, whatever money raised on these bonds, possibly CRR, but no SLR. Further SLR on this, right?
No, there is no CRR requirement as well.
No CRR.
But you need an SLR. But you need to have a SLR guideline for that, I believe. If you don't have SLR limits, the banks will not be able to participate. Before, I don't know. I mean, this is your subject, so.
Yeah, you need to have excess SLR for you to participate.
Okay, excess SLR. Yeah, right. That's right. Yeah, thanks very much. So I have a follow-up question. So from the discussion, I understood that while the 2.0 norms say that at least 10% to NBFC MFIs, 15% to NBFCs less than 500 crores, and so on and so forth. The allocation of money under these sublimits again will gravitate towards the higher rated MFIs and NBFCs, right? So an extension of that is there is no categorization that it should be MFIs less than 500 crores or MFIs between 500 and 5,000. So possibly all that will be cornered by NBFCs, and MFIs will really be left with, literally the crumbs. Is that an expectation?
So 10% limit within 50,000 crore, which is 5,000 crore, is going to straight away come to the MFI sector. Beyond that, MFI sector, in our view, even garner some funds under the other limits which are there, which is funding to NBFCs less than 500 crore and less than 5,000 crore as well. But 5,000 crore is a minimum assured amount, provided banks participate and the entire 50,000 crore limits get allocated.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So these 10%, 15%, and 25% are the minimum for each of those categories, and that has to be followed for each and every bank.
Yeah, and I also much want to add here that, I mean, let's also be honest. I mean, it's not that, I mean, the larger, so let's look at 10%, 5,000 crore for NBFC MFI. There are 7 odd NBFC MFIs which take care of about 70%, 10 NBFCs which account for 70% of the market. I doubt if people will be taking so much of cash and take so much of negative carry for just the sake of it being available in TLR2, because it will still be available at a certain price. So yes, there is a cost of doing this. So you will actually have probably, and that is why we believe, in fact, the idea is that it has to be bottom up. That's where Vibhuti and Evadar have to work to quickly get this pool and get the banks to participate in it. This is more important rather than the larger MFIs taking away the entire chunk, because that's also quite large for even them to absorb all of it. It's not just one side of a problem.
Yeah, but the large MFIs typically have, very large annual fundraising plans, and this really comes in handy.
Annual, and the world is not coming to, I agree, but the world is not coming to an end here, right? This is a time, this is a liquidity issue for this period, but the funding is available later also. So we are not going to use this instrument for covering my entire year's funding plan, right?
Fair enough. Thanks.
So I think we've run out of time. So I would like to thank everyone for joining us on this webinar. And I know that there were some questions which could not be answered given the time constraints. So do feel free to reach out to us separately offline as well. I wish everyone good health in such times, and I look forward to your participation in future Vibhuti events as well. Thanks again for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This concludes today's call. Thank you for your participation. You may now disconnect.